call to worship is from Welcome Home by Rachel Rote. Welcome, you questioners, seekers of truth, pilgrims longing for sanctuary, travelers needing harbor from the storm. Welcome, those who are holding on by a thread, determined breakers of the chains of loneliness and isolation. Welcome home. Welcome, those who braid ropes again and again. You've been there for our siblings who were just hanging on. You gave them a hand into community and told them they could rest here. Welcome. Welcome home. How do we make this tender place wider? How do we stretch into a bolder welcome, a radical generosity of the heart? Can we imagine ourselves the stewards and ushers not only into this space, but into our circle of belonging? There is, in this place, the possibility of healing, of repair, of making things right within ourselves, between us, and with the wider world. There is, in this place, possibility. Welcome home. For our meditation, we have some words by Mary Wellemeyer. Get comfortable in your chair, sort of shake it out a little bit, let yourself feel connected to the earth. It's a pilgrimage, like a trek around a sacred mountain, but it's life itself, the whole thing, every moment. On the high passes of the sacred mountain, pilgrims hope for a kind of death, a rebirth of spirit. And it's not a bad thing to go there and do that if time and money allow. But what of this journey of every day? And what can we learn from the pilgrims at the mountain? They, light-headed in the altitude, gasping in amazement, at the alternation of clear, bright sunlight and wind-blown snows, amid the vast, craggy highlands and steep, worn paths. It seems to me a wind blows here, from that mountain or somewhere. And so we, pilgrims of sidewalk and parking lot, are sometimes taken unawares, not so much by wind-blown snows as by apples in the supermarket, or sunshine through the trees next to the school. We gasp in amazement, lifted from our everyday selves for no reason at all. Let it be a pilgrimage each day, and may our journeys all be blessed. Well, this time of year, some people are thinking about traveling, making plans. Not full-on pilgrimages, but vacations. Yet I would argue that travel is often a pilgrimage when we don't expect it. So I want to kind of mingle these special travels, devotional journeys we take for deep, profound reasons as seekers, and all the other travel we do that has surprising lessons in it. There might be spiritual dimensions. Think back in your life journey. Was there a cosmic fork in the road? Did you have to choose between Yahweh and your way? I've been wanting to work that in for months. The ancient Egyptians made pilgrimages in the honor of the cat goddess, Well, I serve the cat goddess. Well, that is, I am a servant to some cats. I don't go to the city of the cats in the Nile Delta to pay homage. I do make treks to the pet food store to get more kitty litter. Anyway, we have our journeys. In ancient Greeks, there were the Eleusinian mysteries, which involved a long walk before you got there, and then a ceremony that had some psychedelics involved that apparently helped you overcome some of the fear of death. I've done the psychedelic part, still have the fear of death. Maybe I didn't do it right. Maybe I should have done it in Greece. That's probably the secret. And then there were the journeys to Delphi to see the oracle, to gain wisdom, different goals. I've always wondered, was there a sign, the line of seekers to hear the oracle? Did it say the oracle is in? Did you know? Anyway, different causes, different longings of the soul in these stories. Plato took a word from pilgrimage. The word was theoria, and it was the meaning of a journey when you were trying to be close to the gods. And he brought it into philosophical discussion, hence our word theory. It has an interesting implication. It suggests that every theoretical exploration has an element of pilgrimage in it, and every pilgrimage has a philosophical exploration in it. Which reminds me of the guy who kept Googling his own name. Apparently he was trying to find himself. If you don't groan, you're not paying attention. Many go to Rome, sacred center of the church, all that. I find Rome very expensive. I mean, the phone, think of all those Roman charges. Okay, that one took nerve. Wait till you hear the next one. This one really takes nerve. Okay, this is the story about Guido. Now, Guido's a good guy. He pays his bills. He's nice to his mother. And he goes down to the barbershop. Now, this is the neighborhood barbershop where all the guys hang out. And as it happens, he's the first customer after the barber has been on a trip. The barber has been to Italy. Now, the neighborhood's Italian. Going to Italy is a big deal. Guido's never been to Italy. And the barber is going on about all the things he saw and how he went to the Vatican, and there was this big audience, and I'm pretty sure the Pope looking out that window was looking right at me. And Guido's kind of bummed. And he walks away from the barber shop and he's thinking, I pay good money to get my hair cut, and I gotta listen to this blowhard and all his travel stories. So Guido does something. He buys a ticket, he goes to Italy. He sees everything. He comes back on schedule 2 weeks later for his very next appointment. And he's got a thing or two to tell the barber. He says, hey, I was in Italy. Just like you said, it was wonderful. And I ran into a guy I know who's pretty well connected. He got me in. I got to meet the Pope, Il Papa. Guido, okay. You wouldn't believe this. Okay, I'm in the line here. I'm going up to kiss his ring. I'm leaning down, and the Pope actually talks to me. He didn't say anything to anybody else. He says, hey, what's your name? And I said, Guido. And the Pope, the Holy Father, leans down and says, Guido, where did you get such a terrible haircut? Okay. I heard that joke in high school, and I have been waiting. The well-known pilgrimage is the Camino de Santiago, the Way of St. James. A little bit of France, across the north of Spain, a long walk to get to a cathedral where they say the bones of St. James are buried. We don't know about that. But the walk itself, it comes from some inner call. There's been considerable research, and I have a few quotes here. People saying why they did it. Sometimes to mark a certain part of their lives, to be spiritually fulfilled, to find a lost center in themselves. Quote, I could walk the ancient route to Santiago, searching to recover the lost passion and put together the fragments of my life. Another, I had a feeling that I had turned in the wrong direction at one of the crossroads in my life and lost touch with my role and mission in this world. Another, to step out of the whirlpool of needs and obligations and get closer to myself in solitude and solve some important problem that has been plaguing me. Another, I wrote about 20 good reasons on a piece of paper, but none were satisfactory. Then I wrote on the next page, I am embarking on this journey to understand why I walk this path. That gets to the point. We often don't know why we've done it until we get there, or maybe even until we get back. This is deep. This is reaching into mystery. And of course, we can't plan it consciously. That's not where mystery lives. Some variations. Well, one of the reasons people go places is there's something about that place. Maybe it's the birthplace of a great person, or a place where a miracle happened or something. There is a point of contact on the terrestrial level, contact with the dimension beyond, contact with the holy. That is the nature of pilgrimage sites. There is the Western Wall in Jerusalem, and if you go there, you see these people praying all day long. The cartoon I saw was Captain Ahab from Moby Dick, okay, in his whole captain outfit with the harpoon. And the guide there at the wall was saying, I think you're looking for some different kind of whaling wall. I'm pushing it, aren't I? Yeah. Okay. How about Mecca? More people go to Mecca every year than any other site. Millions, the Hajj, to see what? A little black stone building. Well, it's where the prophet was. Things happened there. This is the point of contact. And to make the ceremonial circling of this is a profound moment in a believer's life. I've been to Mount Fuji, which is in the Shinto tradition, the place you go. Extraordinary natural beauty, this great sense of reverence. And we can say, all right, perhaps this place is connected to the gods somehow. I know it's connected to the nature gods. Look at this. So one of the things we go for in our seeking is a stronger connection to nature and beauty. I've been to Varanasi in India. Okay, here is the place you worship Shiva. Well, or come for purification. Come down to the Ganges and bathe. I looked at that Ganges, I looked at people bathing in it. I wasn't getting in that water. But it's symbolic, okay? It's a spiritual purification of some kind. You think of Lourdes and the healing that took place there. It's a grotto. That is a connecting place between the seen and the unseen, the upper world and the place of mystery. That's where the healing waters are. So some kind of ritual, the ritual of travel, and perhaps there is some special thing you do there, like at Lourdes where you take the water, that represents an invisible thing, an externalization through ceremony of a change that may or may not happen within. Now those are some special journeys. What about ordinary events as pilgrimage? We can walk around town. We can go to a pretty place. I live half a block from Mission Creek. During the wet season, I go every day and stay for a while. The running water is a beautiful thing and calms me. In the dry weather, I have a little video of it. Still watch it every day. Or in our beautiful state, you can go to extraordinary places like Yosemite, which is a cathedral of natural granite. Actually, any stand of redwoods works for me. Even the tiny grove at the Botanical Garden, I will go there and just be near the immensity. These trees, often a sacred symbol, reaching up to the heavens. Have you taken the UU pilgrimage? I did it, of course. I get around. The Unitarian Universalist Center is Massachusetts. You can go to Concord. You can go to the Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, see the graves of Emerson, Thoreau, Louisa May Alcott. You can go to their homes. You can go out to Walden Pond and see where Thoreau had his extraordinary experience. Again, nature. It's a pretty place, but it's just a little pond. It doesn't seem like the Vatican, but it is to us. And then I was mentioning vacation. Sometimes you combine things. I know I'm telling some personal stories here, but when I got into studying psychology, I made the trip. I went to Freud's house, looked at the couch. It looks just like it does in the pictures. And he's got little antiquities around, little statues from ancient Greece and Egypt, just like you would imagine. I went to Zurich and saw Carl Jung built a little retreat castle with his own hands. Had some helpers, but he moved a lot of the stones and carved them himself. And it really is a medieval treasure. And when Jungians get together, they compare notes. Did you get to bowling? Oh, yeah. I like to brag. I use the boat so that I go out in the water a little bit and get a good picture. And then my friend said, I used the outhouse. You used Jung's outhouse. You win. Or perhaps you have been an activist, and perhaps I'll mention a few I've visited, but I'm hoping that this sparks memories for you, the places you have been and the meanings they have had. So I went to Little Rock for a GA many years ago, and the one thing I wanted to see in Little Rock was Central High School, where the beginning of the civil rights really happened. On another occasion, I was in North Carolina. I went and made the trip over to Greensboro to see the lunch counter, where the famous sit-in was. It's a little bit museum now. Was in Memphis to hear some good music, but made a point to go see the Lorraine Motel, where the great leader was killed. Happened to be in Manhattan and caught a show. I mean, these are not pure pilgrimages. These are times when I was traveling for other occasions. One of the things I wanted to see in New York was the Stonewall, where the first gay action was ever done. Got a story for you, a marvelous story. Let me see if I can get this thing working here. A movie has been made. It was a award-winning play and then was made into a film in the 80s, I think, and again in 2014. Anyway, I've got some slides from the more recent production, and I want to use this as an example of a pilgrimage. It is not someone setting off on the Hajj or going off to the Vatican. It is somebody that really wants to go someplace that she's been longing to see for a long time. Eric, I'm not seeing the slide here. Have you got it up? It's on the screen. It's going to get here. I just want to be able to see what's going on. I want the opening title slide. It says "Story Begins" in the script. Thank you, sir. It's by Horton Foote. He's a wonderful writer. He did the screenplay for To Kill a Mockingbird and has done some other just really elegiac work. And this is about that woman we see off in the distance in the picture there. Her name is Carrie Watts, but most people call her Mrs. Carrie. She's pretty old. And that's Houston in the 50s, and she's bringing some things from the market. A very modest life with her son and her daughter-in-law in a very cheap apartment. There's tension in the household. Her daughter-in-law gets very annoyed when Mrs. Watts, her mother-in-law, sings. Well, Mrs. Watts is sweeping up and making meals and things, being of some help, and she's a spiritual person. She likes to sing the old hymns, and she sings fairly loud, and it drives her daughter-in-law nutso. And her daughter-in-law wants to do things like go to the beauty parlor. And next slide there, Eric, thanks. That's Jessie May. Is materialistic within the bounds of their very modest means, but she'd love to go to the movies or go down to the soda fountain and have a Coke with her friends. And the tension between the two women starts off the story. And the son is in the background. You see him in the image. He's not a major player in the power dynamics in this household. He's not very successful, and they're just getting by. So this is regular life. And here is the inner tension between us, that is the part of us that would like spirituality, the part of us that would like a new hairdo, that is the materialistic versus the invisible. And so Mrs. Watts runs away. Now she is the wise old woman of the story, and she has some kind of a government pension check that comes in that she's supposed to put into the family account, but she snags that thing and makes her trip. She's been talking about going back to the place she raised Ludi, her son, and was married, and her life before coming to the city. She doesn't like the city much. You see the tension between city life and country life, between the shadow, because the city's not very pretty, and her memory, at least, of the country is just extraordinary, and the names, Bountiful, that's the village where she lived. She meets a new friend in the bus station and tells her what she's up to, and this is interesting. On these journeys, you will make friends. Any travel, it's strange, you probably wouldn't you go down to Denny's in this town, you're not going to chat with somebody, but if you're in Atlanta, maybe you will. There's something about travel, or bus stations where everybody's traveling, and there's a natural tendency to help each other. That kind of thing happens here. You make friends along the way. There was some talk about a full moon. She was talking to her son about her longing for Bountiful. And she talked about the time he was afraid of dying, and I think his father had just died. And she took him out to see the full moon, and it calmed him. She's very happy when the bus comes, just makes it because Ludi and Jesse were in fact looking for her in the bus station, and she just managed to sneak away. There's a trickster element to the story, and she is delighted. There's a shooting star, and she says, oh, you can make a wish on a shooting star. You make one. And her new friend, who happens to sit next to her in the bus, there she is, says, well, you saw the star, you take the, oh no, I've already had my wish. I'm going to Bountiful. This is the world to her. She hasn't been there for 20 years, and it's where the most active part of her life happened. And the story she tells about that place, there's one friend left. Apparently the country store and gas station and post office is all that's left of the place, and one of her neighbors is still living there and still alive. She hopes to go visit her. She sent a little note. Didn't give her much notice because she didn't know when she's going to be able to get away. They get to the new train station, and there's no way to get out to Bountiful. There was no stopping at Bountiful. She's in the next town over. So she'll sleep on the bench for the night. The local sheriff comes over to check on her and says, well, she's sound asleep on the bench there. He says, well, I'll call Houston and see if family will come get her. And she might be picked up at the train station and bus station there and taken back home without ever getting to her farm to see what she's been longing to visit. She has a fit, kind of a meltdown, and the kindly sheriff drives her the 12 miles out to the little village of Bountiful in the old sheriff's police car there. Well, the sign is down. Things aren't what they once were. Things are not as bountiful as in the past. She is particularly sad when she sees the post office, which was also the general store, and the gas station. It's all closed up now. Oh, she got word that her last friend had died a few days ago. There really is nothing there. She gets to the house, and it is a wreck. The sheriff waits around. The son is on the way. She won't have long to look it over. She looks over the place she raised Ludi and was married and worked the farm, worked hard, and talks about how hard it was and how wonderful it was. She says, if you live so long that you've outlived your house and your family, you've probably been around too long. A lot of reflection just from coming here. I think that can happen even if you don't make the journey. But her son Ludi does catch up, and she's pointing out that place she took him when he was afraid, and he says, hey, I don't remember. And things had happened, and across the way, the farmers had some other crops going on the other side of the road, and we could feel the Gulf air, what it was like in the evening. He says, I don't remember. And your father, you know, your grandfather was a good-looking fellow. You take after him. No, I don't remember him. She goes on, and finally she starts talking about the birds, and those he remembers. They have birds there that are different than what you see in Houston, and she is very fond and names all the birds, and he starts to get into that, and then he says, I've been lying, I remember it all. And he starts to cry. His life hasn't gone as he had hoped, and he remembers it fondly too. And finally, Jessie comes out from the car, and it has a piece of paper with a whole set of rules she expects her mother-in-law to follow when they get back. And that she won't be singing around the apartment, at least when Jessie is there. When she's away, singing's all fine, as loud as you want, and other things. And Carrie, who's been a bit contentious, they've had a tug of war, doesn't tug, doesn't fight any of them, says, yeah, I can do that. Yes, ma'am. Yes to that, and yes to that as well, the whole list. She's made her peace. There's something settled in her. Maybe she came out here to make ready for dying. It's not spelled out in the screenplay, but the journey did something for her, connected her to something in herself that she had lost track of. And she can put up with her daughter-in-law and all her fussiness and all her materialistic desire for nice things that may or may not ever happen. And then the son steps in and says, wait, there's more. We need to be more understanding and tolerant of each other. He's talking to his wife. He's already plenty understanding and tolerant. And she looks at him a little bit stiff for a moment, and then she relaxes and agrees to all of it. They all got something out of this trip. And she said, well, now where is that government check? And Mrs. Watts pulls it out, and she says, oh, well, I guess you can handle your own money. And we see a shift. Something has happened. And so they get in the car and head home. And that is the end of the adventure in Bountiful. So what do we get from this? Well, she's a person of a certain age. There is a certain coming to grips with things later in life. We all have nostalgia about some place. Maybe we go and visit it, or maybe we just pull out a scrapbook and look at a photo or something. We can revisit, see who we were, see if there's anything about who we were we'd like to be some more. Some part of ourselves we haven't visited in a while, whether we visit in person or in fantasy. The journey in this story did change something. That rundown place was indeed bountiful. So I promise you action steps. When you're lost on the spiritual journey, will the Eightfold Path get you back to Goleta? That was just a philosophical question. That wasn't the action step. The action step is review your pilgrimage experiences, where you have intentionally gone someplace for a reason. Whether it's a spiritual reason or just because it's your favorite writer and you're going to see. I made the journey to Prince Edward Island. I think I mentioned that another time when we were talking about Anne of Green Gables, and saw all the places. Well, if you've been inside of a book or a series of books, and then you actually go and you say, these places, they're actually here. What did you learn about yourself those times when you did put together a pilgrimage journey? Is there some devotional trek you want to do? Can you identify that as I ramble on? Can you identify what you yearn for? Well, I'd like to see this and that. I'd like to visit with this old friend if they're still alive. You can list the practicalities. And what are you looking for in yourself to go to that? I am a person who goes to school reunions. They are not fun. They're the strangest things. I don't happen to drink. Everybody else drinks an awful lot. And I went to many of them, and then I saw some guy I had not seen at any of the others that I had not seen since high school, and he said, you were hilarious in high school. You were really funny. And I thought, oh, yeah, well, I mean, I told dumb jokes then just like I do now. I mean, although there was a little more physical humor and goofing off and things like that. Yeah, I was a bit of a class clown and made friends that way. And to be remembered meant the world to me. I thought, yeah, that's who I was, and that is still around. I'm still doing that. And then I told him a dumb joke. Do any nearby quests call you, like my little journey to Mission Creek? Are there places around here that touch your soul that you get to regularly or need to get to regularly that you might put on your schedule? Are there inner journeys you could do that don't really require going anywhere? I mentioned a photo album or a journal, just to reflect on some place that you need to go philosophically, some place spiritually that you want to revisit. The next time you travel, consider the possibility that there is a pilgrimage involved, even if that was not your plan. Namaste. Blessed be. And so it goes.